Welcome back, guys. We're done with triggers. Now we're ready to talk about the simple actions that you can set in motion. These actions include the following, and pardon me while I look at this list because there are a few of them. There's update record, create activity, send email, send SMS, add followers, remove followers, create record, and execute existing actions. We're not going to be dealing with execute code or send webhook notification because I want to spend a bit more time on those separately. To make this easy, we're going to use the same trigger every time. We've already talked about triggers, so we don't need to make this unnecessarily complicated. So let's dive in. So we've got our preferred setup already here. We're in Studio for one of these tabs, and we're in the form view for the other. Our trigger is on save, and we're going to say when the salesperson is changed and that change is saved. So now we're all set up. Let's dig in. So the first action that we can run here is to update a record, right? We can come in and we can update our current record with any value that we choose, okay? So say we want to update the customer to Abigail Peterson here. This is a fairly simple thing. We're going to say update the customer to Abigail Peterson if we change the salesperson, which is kind of a silly example, but it's illustrative enough. So we went ahead and saved. Now we're going to change our salesperson. Currently we can see the customer is Gemini Furniture. We expect it to change to Abigail Peterson. So now it's John Doe. We save, and you can see customer was changed to Abigail Peterson. Now let's go ahead and look at create activity. Okay, so activities, if you remember, are these guys right here. It's basically a to-do list for our company, making sure that people are doing what we want them to when we want them to. So we're going to say if the salesperson changes, we're going to have this to do and make sure. So review salesperson change. We're going to have a specific user do this, okay? You can have it be a dynamic user based on what's going on in the sales order. So we could say user ID and we could say it's their team lead. Let's go ahead and do that, actually. That'd be a good example. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to look at the sales team. So we've got the team underscore ID, and then we've got the sales teams right here. So we're going to say team underscore ID to call the sales team, and then we're going to say user underscore ID to get the team lead. Okay, so we've got that in there now. We've got team underscore ID dot user underscore ID, which should call the team lead for the sales team on this sale. So we're going to save this real quick and then we'll go test it. So we're out here. We're going to change this from John Doe to Mitchell Admin, and we're going to save it. And now we have a new activity here for Mitchell Admin, who is our team lead for team sales. Pretty slick. So now let's look at sending an email. So ODOO, if you're not familiar with this, has mass mailing email templates. So we can say essentially, I'm going to trigger this email template. The email template then takes care of the body of the email, the subject. It also goes in and shows us who we want to send this to, okay? So there's not a ton that you do with this action. You're really just kicking off that template. An email is going to be sent to whoever we set on the template. It's not going to show in the messaging history. Message is going to be sent out and still be in the messaging history. And a note is only going to appear internally. Send SMS is a lot like email. It's basically the same sort of thing, but really you have to have a certain configuration set up for this. It's a little bit more complicated than what most people would do, but you would set up an SMS template, again, like your email template, and then choose how it's going to send. Now we're on to add followers. So followers are basically people that are going to be notified when things change here. By default, you have the customer, the salesperson, but if we want to add more followers, then we can do that through an action like this. So currently we have Mitchell Admin, John Doe, and Gemini Furniture following this. So let's go ahead and remove John Doe real quick. That way we only have 2 followers, and we're going to add him back. Coming in here, we're going to add followers. We're going to say John Doe is going to be our new follower here. Save and close. This is all good. Let's save it, and let's test this guy. So out here again, we only have these followers for right now. Let's go ahead and say Mark Demo is our change. Go ahead and save. And Mark Demo, because he's our new salesperson, actually gets added too, but John Doe comes in as a new follower here. Conversely, maybe we want to remove some followers. So looking at this, we've got Mitchell Admin, Mark Demo, and John Doe. We're going to go ahead and remove John Doe, okay? So let's save this. Let's go ahead and test it. So let's go ahead and change our salesperson. We're going to change it to Mark Demo here. We're going to save. And you can see our count changed. We're going to refresh this real quick and make sure that we're getting accurate information. Looking at this. Okay, our followers are good. So this next one, create record, is pretty interesting and potentially useful. But the problem here is that you can only set the name and a link field. So that creates an issue for us because in sales order and many models, there are required fields that aren't listed here. So I wouldn't really recommend using create record. I would actually just go to execute code. So wait for our video there and I'll show you how to create records through that. So this last one is execute existing code. So we may have other server actions or other code that we've set up to run on our sales order model. We can decide to trigger any number of these. So I could say I want to pause the subscription. I want to mark the quotation as sent. I could do a lot of things here. Okay, so I could select all those, go ahead and save. And you can see when I come out here, if I'm trying to change this to John Doe from something else, it's actually going to give me an error because I'm calling an action. We're already confirmed here. We don't want to move it back to sent. So it is triggering it. So those are the simple kind of cookie cutter actions that we can trigger. They definitely have their uses, but if you're wanting to do something more powerful, you're more likely to use a webhook or to execute code. In my next video, I'm going to be talking about execute code because most of what I do inside of ODOO with automated actions is using that. It takes a little bit of understanding of Python, and certainly if you're doing crazy stuff, really intense stuff, you may need to learn quite a bit of Python to make it work. But it's very open-ended, so you can do a lot with it. And so it's important to learn about it. So I hope you stay tuned. Thanks.